As always, we will give folks a couple minutes to trickle in, to log in. So we'll officially start things around 6:35. So feel free in the meantime. I'm just going to go through some general housekeeping and a quick welcome as folks continue to log in. So welcome into the space, everyone. For those that may be unfamiliar, my name is Adriana Griffith. I am the statewide advocacy manager here at Initiate Justice. And it's a pleasure to see everyone this evening. I'm happy to be in space with you all again. And really exciting for tonight's meeting and tonight's guest speakers. So really, really exciting to engage in this conversation. But before I get into that and those nuts and bolts, just a couple of quick housekeeping tips. A reminder that this call is being recorded. As always, we do record our monthly member meetings here at Initiate Justice, just so that any members or community members who are unable to attend tonight's meeting or have to leave early for whatever reason are still able to watch the recording back afterwards. And so we do post this on our YouTube page that folks can follow along with. And so, like I said, if you missed tonight's meeting or if you have to leave for whatever reason, we are recording this. And so you will be able to watch that back at a later date. Other housekeeping reminders, please remember to stay muted. Folks are automatically muted when they come into the space, but just as a gentle reminder to remember to stay muted, just so that we don't have any background noise or anything that's too distracting for folks in space today. Also, if this is your first time at an Initiate Justice monthly meeting, welcome, welcome, welcome. So please definitely, I see Emiliano has already done so. Hi, Emiliano. But please utilize the chat to introduce yourself. Let us know where you're zooming in from. We love to see, I do save these chats and go through them occasionally just to kind of see what was said, what's going on, anything we need to pay attention to. So definitely please say hello, introduce yourselves in the chat, let us know where you're zooming in from. If you are new to our space for the first time, tell us what brought you here and how you found out about us. We love it when new people join our spaces. And we love it when new people discover Initiate Justice, really exciting. So please let us know if you are new to the space. And if you are, welcome. And if you are returning, welcome back. It's a pleasure to have y'all here. Some other quick, just general announcements. I'm going to drop a link into the chat. And so this is going to be for my new folks that are joining us for the first time. Oh, hold on. Let me do everyone in the meeting, not folks in the waiting room. So this is going to be for folks that are joining us for the first time. That is a link to sign up to be an official member of Initiate Justice. And what that means is you will get all of our monthly email updates, our quarterly newsletter that goes out. We are just getting ready to send out this quarter, or I believe it already came out. But we share monthly updates, official announcements, and our quarterly digital newsletter. So sign up at tinyurl.com/joinij, and you will start to receive those monthly emails, which include monthly recaps of these meetings and any other meeting or event that we host throughout the month. So I just wanted to give that quick little disclaimer. So don't forget to sign up. And then in terms of our agenda for this evening, so as always, we're going to start with our general organizational announcements and any updates that our departments have shared. And then we will get into our main program around 6:50 or so, 6:50, 7 o'clock, where we have some guests joining us from the Napa County and the LA County Registrar of Voters office. And so really excited to have these folks in space with us. We are going to be talking all about how we are working together and working to make sure that folks who are impacted by incarceration have the necessary information they need to access voting and to exercise their rights, particularly since Prop 17 passed in 2020. And so we're really excited to have them in space with us. We will introduce them a little bit later as we get into the evening, but it should be really, really great. So we have some questions designated that we are going to be asking as Initiate Justice. And then we are also going to have space at the end for all of you to ask questions if that is your thing. So we definitely want to create space as always for folks to engage, ask questions, and even if these folks aren't from your specific county, still ask the questions of how you can get connected to your registrar of voters. Every county has one, and so really excited to just kind of dive in and sort of break the ice and see who knows about the Registrar of Voters office, who doesn't. Should be really, really exciting conversation. So I can't wait for it. And I hope all of you can't either. But without further ado, it is 6:36, so I am going to move us forward with our organizational updates. So again, as always, if you have questions or anything like that throughout, please drop them in the chat. I will do my best to try to catch them and flag them. Please be mindful, I am the only staff here tonight, so please be patient with me as I navigate through the meeting space tonight. But again, really, really excited. And here we go, y'all. So for our org updates this month, really just want to start off by acknowledging and just reminding folks that as we approach the end of the year, we are going to be taking some time off as a staff and team. And so we, in November and December in particular, we have some significant days off that we will be taking, particularly as we strategize for 2024, for our goals for next year, and as we take time to rest and celebrate and be with family through the holidays as well. So we want to take time to rest and reset and refresh so that we can hit the ground running in 2024. So more information on specific dates and things like that will be announced at next month's member meeting on November 1st. But just wanted to flag that for folks ahead of time, just to get that in your brains and get y'all thinking about what's coming towards the end of the year there. Also, some really exciting news. Initiate Justice just celebrated our birthday, y'all. So we are 7 years old officially. We have been around 7 years now, and it has been absolutely crazy and amazing. I know I joined Initiate Justice through Institute of Impacted Leaders in 2019 in the Oakland cohort. And so now I'm staff and it's 2023. So it's super amazing just to see the growth and the progress that Initiate Justice has had in the last 7 years. So it's really just exciting to kind of see it happen. And so, as always, we want to shout out to and acknowledge our co-founders, Taina and Richie, all of our staff, our organizers, our funders, our members, and all of you as well, whether it is your first time here or whether it is your second time, third time, whether you've been a long time member of Initiate Justice, whatever it is. We want to thank all of you because you are the reason that we are able to do what we do. You are the reason that we are able to make what happens happen. So all of the bills that Initiate Justice has co-sponsored and supported over the years, y'all are the reasons why these bills are getting passed, and why folks are coming home, and why there's so much hope within our community. So as we are celebrating our 7-year birthday, we also just want to acknowledge all of the hard work and support that y'all have provided to us as members, as supporters, as allies, as impacted folks. So we just want to shout y'all out too. Thank you for rocking with us for 7 years. And here's to 7 more. So we're really excited to be going into sort of like a new era of IJ, and still kind of have it be very, very familiar. But we're growing, and with growth comes change. And so I'm just excited to see it, and I hope y'all are as well. So in honor of our birthday, we have been asking community members to support us in our work to end incarceration by donating $7 in honor of our 7th birthday. So we are asking folks to help us out as much as you can, as much as you see fit, wherever you're able to. So I'm going to drop some information into the chat that kind of tells you a little bit more about what that's looking like. So, it all came out kind of convoluted. But as I said, we are celebrating our 7th birthday. And so we have a goal to raise $7,000. And so we are asking each and every one of you to help us reach that goal by donating $7 to our campaign, to our organization. And you can donate at initiatejustice.org/donate. So I dropped the link in the chat. But your donations support work like our Inside Journal that goes in 4 times a year for our Inside members. It reaches half of the state population of incarcerated folks. So it's a huge, huge undertaking, and your support helps us get that done. Also supporting mailing our 60-page inside organizing curriculum inside state prisons so that folks can learn about community organizing and the policy process while they are incarcerated. So the donations also support that, as well as supplies for our Institute of Impacted Leaders program. And so I know I see some of y'all have been participants and graduates of that program. I myself have been a graduate of that program. And so it's absolutely amazing. It's our 12-week advocacy training program for folks directly impacted by incarceration. And again, your support helps us continue to push that forward. We've done almost, I think we're on our 17th cohort this summer. And so we want to be able to do 17 more of these cohorts and really change the landscape in California, particularly for folks that are impacted by incarceration. So if you feel it in your heart to give, if you are able to give, whatever you are able to give, we would definitely really, really appreciate that. So again, the link is in the chat. If you have any questions about that, you can reach out to me, or you can reach out to our comms manager, Michelle at initiatejustice.org. So let's keep it going, y'all. Let's do 7 more years. Let's do 10 more years. Let's do 20 more years until every single person in prison has been freed and reunited with their loved ones and families, and we abolish the system. So let's go, y'all. Give yourselves a round of applause for all of the work that y'all have helped us do over the last 7 years, because it's your wins too. It's your success as well. Ooh, okay, so that was just some quick organizational updates. We do have quite a few department updates, and then we're going to transition into our main program, or our main portion of the evening. And so in terms of our outside membership and our outside organizing program, we just had our first community mixer in LA at our brand new downtown LA office last month on the 18th. It was absolutely amazing. I unfortunately got sick, so I wasn't able to make it down. So I was sick in bed, but I heard that it was absolutely amazing. We had a lot of new folks in space with us. Nearly half of the folks that joined were new to IJ for the first time. So that was really exciting to hear. We also had staff from our sister organization, Initiate Justice Action. We had staff from the Center for Restorative Justice Works, folks from Cal State LA, as well as folks from the Secretary of State's office. So really, really exciting connections were made. And it was just really, really exciting to see. So we're really grateful that folks turned out and folks chose to come and spend a Monday night with us. So we just wanted to say thank you to everybody that was able to make it. And if you weren't able to make it because you either weren't in LA or for whatever reason, we are definitely looking forward to doing more events like this in the future in 2024. So again, sign up for our newsletter or sign up to become a member if you haven't already. So that way you can be the first to be notified when we are doing events like this. But that's in terms of outside membership. Again, really grateful that folks turned out for that, and I can't wait to see what we do for the next one. In terms of our inside membership department, and this is our inside membership that goes inside and works with folks, all 45,000 people inside state prison, they send in the journals. So speaking of that, the inside journal is on its way to our loved ones inside. So let them know if you have a loved one inside that signed up to receive the inside journal, let them know that it is on the way. A couple of our staff have already started to receive it. So we know that it's going to be making its rounds through the prisons and through the institutions very, very soon. So just be on the lookout for that. Let them know that it's going to be arriving. And then just a reminder that the October edition of the journal will be the last issue for the year. So we'll include all legislative updates after the governor's October 4th deadline in that particular journal. That's for the October journal. So just wanted to flag that. Also, We have an outreach coming up next weekend, I believe, on the 14th. So we are actually going to be at a trunk or treat event in Fontana on Saturday, October 14th from 5 to 8 p.m. So this is sort of like got a lowrider feel to it, a lowrider theme. So we want to shout out to our inside member Sylvester and their loved one for making this happen and connecting us. So we're really excited to be out there. I will drop the address in the chat. It's not really at a particular location or anything like that, but here is the address. And again, it is in Fontana. I Googled it and it looks to be just like in this big, huge like parking lot. So it looks like it's going to be a really good time. There's going to be lots of candy. There's going to be vendors, food. There's going to be costumes, trophies given out to the kiddos, I'm sure, for their costumes. And so definitely come out, bring out the family, bring out the friends, your community, and stop by at our table because it's going to be really, really exciting. So our inside membership team, Crystal, Ephraim, and our communications manager, Michelle, will all be at that tabling event. So should be really, really excited. If you have any questions about that, you can reach out to me. I'll make sure to drop my email in the chat before we log off for the evening. But yeah, if you have any questions about that, definitely feel free to reach out to me. And then in terms of inside organizing, I told y'all it was a lot of updates, right? It's the end of the year, so there's a lot happening. A lot is finished. And so for those that might not know, our inside organizing team, Lee and Adam, have been going inside doing workshops, facilitating things, training other folks inside to lead workshops. And they have actually completed their very first Spanish cohort at CVSP. And so really, really exciting news to hear. I always love it when I hear that we can expand into second languages, particularly Spanish, because it's another huge population of folks in the prison system. So we're really, really excited that they were able to complete that first Spanish cohort, the first of many. So shouts outs to them. They are not here this evening, but if you know them, if you see them in space, or you want to shoot them a quick email just to say shout out, congratulations, definitely encourage y'all to do that because it was a huge endeavor. And they also are continuing to host facilitator trainings inside for folks to lead their own civic engagement workshops inside prison. So that's currently happening with our inside teams. Lots of work being done, even though that it's the end of the year, but they are still going strong and hard. So we couldn't be more proud of them. And then the updates that I'm sure everybody is just itching to hear about are policy updates. And so currently we have about 3 bills that are sitting on the governor's that are sitting on the governor's desk waiting to get signatures. So those bills are AB 60 by Assemblymember Bryan, which is to notify victims of restorative justice programs in their area. So that bill passed. It is currently on the governor's desk waiting for his signature, along with AB 1118, which is the Racial Justice Act 3.0, and then AB 581 by Assemblymember Carrillo, and that is providing access to Healing Act, which basically means that we are trying to essentially get CDCR to have one set of rules when it comes to allowing different programs and things like that to come inside to run programs so that there's just one unified, uniform process. So that passed, and again, it is currently sitting waiting on the governor's desk for his signature, and he has until October 14th to take action. So he has until October 14th to sign the remaining bills into law or veto those bills that are on his desk. So if you are interested in following along or seeing those updates, I'm dropping into the chat right now a link that you can go to. It is the governor's website, but it's the newsroom. And so you can always go to this website to see what the latest news is, especially around this time, to see what he's vetoed, what he's passed, and any messages that's going along with each of those passes and vetoes. So we are still waiting to hear back on our bills. We remain hopeful that they will get signatures, but time will tell. And again, we will have a final policy update next month at our November member meeting on November 1st, where our policy team will be joining to give full updates on all the bills that got signatures, that maybe didn't get signatures, and then anything about the bills that we still have to work on for next year as well. So those bills are ACA 4, AB 544, which is voting in jails, county jails, and ACA 4 is voting rights in prison. And then AB 1186, which is youth restitution by Assemblymember Bonta. So all of those bills won't move forward until 2024 as they have been turned into 2-year bills. And then, unfortunately, as I know a lot of us have already heard, AB 1310 will not be moving forward, and that was the gun enhancements bill by Assemblymember McKinnon. So it is very, very unfortunate. Our executive director, Antoinette, actually sent out a message to our inside members, our inside organizers, and it's also included in our newsletter for our outside members as well. Yeah, that one really bummed a lot of us out, me as well. So I know so many of us, both inside and outside, have personal experience and a personal stake in AB 1310. So definitely encourage you, refer you to our executive director's message, just to know that we're going to take the time to strategize and to regroup and to figure out how we can continue to fight for equal treatment under the law for our folks that are sort of at the weight of these enhancements and what this bill was trying to do. So we definitely hold space for that. Please take care of yourselves and your loved ones as best as you see fit when it comes to this distressing news, because it really is sad. And so take the time to be sad, to mourn the loss for now, and do what you got to do for you, because that's the most important thing, is to just mourn. Sometimes we have to mourn the loss. And then again, prepare ourselves for the fight for next year. So stay tuned. Come to our meeting again next month, talk with our policy team, hear straight from them, and get more of your questions asked as it relates to like maybe why AB 1310 didn't move, and if there's any plans to revitalize it either next year or years coming forward. So definitely stay tuned, but sending love out to everybody who's personally impacted by any bill that didn't get passed this year, whether that is because the governor vetoed it or because the legislature just didn't pass it. So love to everybody. Take care of you. Love you all. But moving forward, because I definitely almost time to transition us to our main event. But really quick, just wanted to provide some brief updates in terms of our committees. And so no volunteer committee meeting this month. I know that is usually going on the second Wednesday of the month. So no volunteer committee meeting this month. Since we are at the end of the year, a lot of what we are going to be doing is just strategizing as a team and having lots of conversations. So there's not really any volunteer action needed at this point in the year. However, instead, we are encouraging folks to sign up to support ACA for Brian, that campaign, the Free the Vote campaign, by helping out our inside team enter surveys that we sent in to folks that are currently incarcerated. So we sent in a whole bunch of surveys to folks currently incarcerated in state prison, asking them about their experiences with voting, this, that, and the third. And then they are going to send all of those surveys back to us. So we should be receiving those in November-ish. And so what we have to do at that point is enter all of that data into our computer system and into our database. So for those that may have helped out with our mail nights in the past, this is going to be something very similar. Again, our inside membership team is going to be taking the lead here. But if you are interested in potentially helping out with this task, we are going to ask that you fill out this form. I'm going to drop it in the chat right now. But if you are interested in helping out with entering that survey data, let us know. Fill out that form. And again, we are expecting these surveys to hit us November-ish. And so at that time, we will be reaching back out to give like more specific days, times, and things of that nature. You will be able to do it either virtually or in person. So even if you aren't located in LA, don't let that discourage you. We need all of the help we can get. So virtual help is going to be available. But if you'd rather come into the office, I know Crystal is also going to be planning some in-person stuff as well. So fill out that form. and Crystal will be reaching out to you with next steps in terms of timeline, and things like that, and like what you can expect. But again, if you have helped out with our mail nights before, it's going to be something fairly similar. And then we aren't having a community action committee this month. However, we are going to be hosting a special committee on the same day, Wednesday, October 25th at 5:30 p.m. And in this special committee, you all will have the opportunity to meet Initiate Justice brand new membership and engagement coordinator. So if you haven't heard, IJ has been doing some hiring over the last few weeks. And so we have been interviewing and things like that. And so we are really excited to expand our teams. I am really excited to expand our outside organizing and outside membership team, and gain a team member and a partner in all of this. So really, really exciting. So we have created space on Wednesday, October 25th, for y'all to come and meet this person. So we're not telling you who they are just yet, but come on the 25th, meet the new person who will essentially be taking over my role with the membership as I kind of focus more on the organizing piece. But they will be doing meetings, committee meetings, and everything else in between. You'll have a chance to ask questions and just kind of get to know them, and think about it in terms of like a little bit of a meet and greet. So that's what you can expect for that meeting. Again, super, super excited to welcome new blood into the fold and onto the team. So yeah, stay tuned for more information via our social media as well as our recap emails as well. Yeah, somewhat passing on the torch. I'll definitely still be supporting this person and be in space and things like that, but they will primarily be taking the lead on things. So really, really excited there. But that was a lot. So before we transition into our main program of the evening, I want to ask if there are any questions about any of these updates, anything at all that I've gone over in the last 30 minutes, from birthdays to policy to whatever it is. But I want to create space and see if there's any questions about any of that stuff first. Effie, go ahead.
That was a lot you shared. Thank you. But I do have one question, and it's for the mixer. Because as a matter of fact, I was going to join the mixer because I thought there was going to be like a virtual option on the day off. So I logged into my email and whatnot, and I said, "Oh, it's only in person." So um moving forward, is that something you guys would want to consider? Because if not, some of us might never be there. I'm 4 hours away from Los Angeles. I'm in Imperial County, and I'm sure there are some other people that are far away from LA as well.
Absolutely. No, you bring up a really good point. I'm in Stockton, so I'm way up here by Sacramento. So definitely understand the need to bring IJ more up and into other spaces. So yeah, that's definitely a plan. We want to continue to do more in-person events, but we definitely want to spread out throughout the state, particularly where our members and organizers and things like that are. So as we go into planning for 2024, we're definitely keeping that in mind, and how can we show up more at in-person events in different spaces throughout the state to engage with folks throughout, from Sacramento on down. I think we even have a few members like up in Redding, in the Eureka area, Humboldt County. So yeah, so we're definitely keeping them in space and in consideration all the time. And as always, we're always considering virtual events too. I think we're really just trying to figure out how can we be in space in person, as opposed to in Zoom. But again, when we can't be in person, we'll definitely be in Zoom together. So you can definitely expect that for sure. Great question. Are there any other questions before we transition to our main program? Awesome. So I am not seeing any. So that is really exciting. So I am going to get ready to introduce our guests for the evening, and really just get us started with this conversation. And so just to give a little bit of framing, at Initiate Justice, we like wholeheartedly believe that it is important to uplift efforts to not just pass legislation, but to also implement state policy on the local level, so that our community is equipped with the knowledge and information to support these efforts as well, right? Passing the bill is only part of it, right? Implementation is the next piece, and how effective is that implementation, right? And who are the key players, and what does all that entail, right? So that being said, one policy in particular that we must continue implementation efforts around, particularly educating folks of their right, is around Prop 17, which restored the right to vote for people on parole back in 2020. And so I came home in 2015. So by the time voting and stuff like that, my vote was restored by the time I could vote. I discharged in 2017. So 3 years before Prop 17. But Prop 17 restored the vote for 50,000 people approximately in the state of California. And more people were coming home every day. So that adds to the pool of people who are on parole. So because Prop 17 expanded this voting access to thousands of people, many efforts were put in place by various organizations, both community-based and government, to ensure that impacted community members were educated on this change moving forward, and that folks, again, were educated and informed of their right to vote. So this month, we invited guests from separate counties to uplift the efforts they are doing in their counties to increase awareness and voter engagement of people impacted by incarceration. And so we are joined today this evening by John, and forgive me if I mispronounce your last name, John, but we are joined today by John Tudor, the assessor, recorder, county clerk, and registrar of voters for Napa County, and Philip Vabetta, who is the manager of mobile voting and vote by mail drop box programs from Los Angeles County's Registrar of Voters office. So we are really excited to have them in space today. But before we transition and I give them a moment to introduce themselves, I want to ask a question of folks here generally. How many people, and you can just raise your real hand or raise your virtual hand, but how many people have heard about the Registrar of Voters office before? Okay, cool, cool. A few of you. Nice, nice. How many people know who their local registrar of voter is or where to find them? Okay, that's totally fair, right? We know about the registrar of voters, we know they exist, but maybe we don't know who they are, or where they're located or how best to connect. So I'm hoping that by the end of this meeting, um, that by the end of tonight, you will have much more information on the registrar of voters, the role that they play in communities, and yeah, and how to connect with your own local registrar of voters office. So that being said, going to transition, and I'm going to spotlight them for everybody. So let me make sure I find, let's see, where is Phil? Oh, there you are, Philip. There you are. Let me add your spotlight. All righty. I feel like I should spotlight myself as well, just to make it less weird. Um, but okay, so everybody is spotlit, everybody can see. And of course, if having the full gallery view is a lot easier for you, you want to see everybody, maybe you definitely have that option. Just click view in the upper right hand corner and change it to gallery. Um, so welcome. Thank you so much, John and Philip, for joining us this evening. Really excited to engage in this conversation with both of y'all. But want to give just maybe a minute or so for each of you to just sort of introduce yourself. I know I kind of said your name and title, but definitely like I just want to hear from you all, like who you are, your title, and then maybe how long you've been working with the Registrar of Voters office in your particular county. So we'll start with John, and then we'll go to Philip.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you all. I've been committed to expanding the right to vote for the 25 years I've been in office as the Napa County Registrar of Voters. I have a total of 44 years in elected office with Napa County. I like it at the local level because we have an impact on everybody from birth to death, marriage, and everything in between. So, just briefly, one of your questions was, and I'll take a part of my minute. What is the role of the Registrar of Voters? I have
Oh,
three.
so we'll get to those
Okay,
questions in a little bit.
that's
Sorry.
me. Off to Philip.
Sorry, yeah. Go ahead, Philip. No
All
worries.
right, good evening, everybody. And excuse the poor lighting. I got stuck in LA traffic, so I had to pull over here off the freeway and didn't quite make it back to the office. I'm Philip Rivera. I've been with the LA County Registrar since 2005. Started off at an admin capacity, moved over to the election side in 2012. We've been working to provide access to the voting process within the LA County jail facilities since about 2010. We've had a pretty robust vote by mail program since then. And in 2020, with the inception of our VSAP program, Voting Solutions for All People, we were, as far as I know, one of the first in the nation to take voting devices into the jails and offer in-person voting to those that are justice involved within the county jail system. We started in 2020 over at a Century Regional women's facility. In 2022, we expanded into one of the male facilities. Those of you that don't know, LA County is a huge, unfortunately, huge jail facility and population. On any given day, we have anywhere from 12 to 14,000 folks incarcerated, and about 80% of those plus are still eligible to vote. In 2024, well, shoot, next year, in a couple months, we'll be in all 7 LA County jail facilities offering these services.
Nice, nice. So thank you so much, y'all, for just taking the time to be here with us this evening. Philip, thank you for pulling over on the side of the freeway in LA
No
to be
problem.
here with us. It's absolutely amazing. That is commitment. So really just appreciate that for both of y'all. So yeah, we'll just hop right into the questions. I know I gave y'all these questions beforehand, but we'll just hop right in and we'll just kind of ping pong it. We'll start with John and then we'll go to Philip. And then
Yeah.
since if there's anything that you want to add to, or if it's like pass, he said everything I could say, we'll go on to the next question. And then, as I said, folks, at the end of all this, we'll have space for y'all to ask some questions too. So really looking forward to that. So we'll start off with this first question, which just what is the role of the Registrar of Voters, and does this role differ by county, or is it the same across the state?
So it is the same across the state. We all follow the same election code sections,
Mhm.
constitutional provisions. So I really have 3 main jobs. My first main job is to make sure that every eligible citizen registers to vote. My second job is to make sure that once they registered, that they actually vote. And my third job is to make sure that their votes are counted accurately and in a secure election which everyone can trust. So that's what the ROV does. We register people to vote. We work with each other statewide. There are 58 of us, 1 in each county. And through the new statewide VoteCal system, we're in touch. We can see every registered voter in the state of California. So we have a major ability to reach out and be available to voters.
Yeah, I concur with John. That's pretty much our role. What we've been doing is one thing we really look forward to is providing that access to that in-person voting experience for folks that have traditionally been underserved. And while we do everything that John says, that's the role of the program I manage, the mobile voting program, is being able to reach those remote corners of the county, reach those populations that are typically underserved. Like I said, 12 to 14,000 people, 80% still eligible. That's an underserved population right there. So there's that need. We get in there and we take care of business. On the back end, we're doing all the same thing as John. LA County has a history of running clean, transparent elections. DOJ often points to us to other counties like, hey, go look what LA County's doing and see if you can match it.
Amazing. So I'm really glad to hear that it is the same across the board. I think I've worked with some county positions where sometimes like each county will do something a little bit differently. So I was curious to see if there was any differences. Obviously, like the breadth, it sounds like LA County has some programs that maybe Napa County doesn't necessarily, in San Joaquin County. and so on and so forth. But it sounds like maybe that's just because the largeness of it, of LA County. And so that's typically kind of what I'm thinking of. But John, you mentioned that one of your other jobs, essentially as an ROV, is to not just ensure that people are registering to vote and that it's a fair election, but that you're making sure that folks are voting. So I'm curious to hear from the both of you, like, what does that look like in terms of like a day-to-day work? Like, what does it look like to make sure that folks are in fact voting?
So let me respond to that in terms of what you're interested in. We have a very active program with our local jail. We only have 200 inmates, not 12 to 14,000. So it's much easier for us, but I didn't know about Philip's program and I'm fascinated by it. We do not have in-person voting for our inmates yet, but we have a very close relationship. We're the only county in California that has a Department of Corrections. It's not under the sheriff. And so we have a very good relationship with our director of corrections and with one lieutenant on their staff who deals with us, makes sure that we get registration affidavits into the jail so people can register to vote. They return them to us. We then make sure that the staff will pick up ballots because you can vote by mail from jail. And I just made a poem, I realized. You can, and we make sure we get their ballots to them and that they can return them. So that's the primary focus. We do a lot of other kinds of outreach, but I think for tonight's program, I want to focus on what we do for that target population that you're interested in at Initiate Justice.
That's perfect. Much. I appreciate you answering it very specific to our population of folks that are impacted by incarceration. So appreciate that, John. Philip, go ahead.
Yeah, I've mentioned that, the broad picture of our mobile voting program is take the voting to all those remote corners and underserved populations. We had talked also about on the phone, we had talked about what we're doing outside of just the work we're doing within the jail system. So we kind of have a twofold approach. Back in 2019, 2018, the board created the Office of Diversion and Reentry. And that was a coalition of groups from assistant DAs, probation, the sheriffs, courts, of course, LA County Registrar, Department of Health Services was in there. So we have this large collaborative, and the goal is, just like with NVRA programs, National Voter Registration Act programs, the goal is to offer voter registration with every person we come in contact with. So assistant DAs, they're prosecuting a case, they have to make their folks aware, hey, you have to offer voter registration. Probation, we go into youth camps with probation. Ever since you could pre-register 16 and 17-year-olds, that's gotten even more popular. Now within the jails, that's a program that was made possible just by a collaboration going back to, like I said, 2010 with the sheriffs. A lot of this wouldn't happen if you don't have that cooperation between those units, or like John said, they have their own correctional facilities there, so they obviously have some good cooperation. In 2012, the last decade, vote by mail has been available, but it's kind of a tedious process in that it takes about 3 to 4 months for them to get their application in, for us to process the application, for us to create the ballot. In LA County jails, when we send the ballots in, we have to make sure we remove all staples, things like that before we send them in. And it had challenges. All transportation was done by the sheriffs. Initially, all registration was done by the sheriffs. And so what are you gonna do? The sheriff comes to the dorm and says, hey, we're here to register folks to vote. And everybody turns around, looks at Big Homie, and Big Homie's like, yeah, we're not interested here. All right, peace, move on. ODR, the Office of Diversion Reentry, with their community groups, we connected them with the sheriffs. We've been able to get people security clearance. And now we have a more of a peer-to-peer relationship when folks are offering registration. Definitely improved it. The one thing we have had to do is kind of corral our volunteers to stay on target with just the voter registration and say, hey, we also got to tell you about this, that, and other. But it's a really good partnership. And as much flack as LA County sheriffs get, they have been very cooperative, very supportive of this program. Those of you that know LA County, we also have way north of us in North County, we have a giant facility called Wayside. Up pitches, there's Wayside, South Side, North and East. they were arranging van pools. So all of our volunteers could show up at Twin Towers, get in a sheriff's van. Some of us were a little uncomfortable, and then drive us all the way out to North County to help facilitate that. So I think that collaboration with getting the sheriffs on board is definitely a key piece of making these processes happen.
Yeah, that's great. That's great to hear that, despite the problems within the sheriff's department that, that have taken place, that have been publicized, to know that they are cooperative and that they are, engaging with your office and everything to make sure that folks are getting their access to their voting ballots and things like that. So that's really fantastic to hear, particularly about the ODR program. We see one of our members dropped something in the chat, that ODR, great program. Looks like y'all are doing some amazing things, and it's definitely impacting the community in a very positive way. So that
Thank
sounds
you.
great and amazing to hear. And so taking it back a little bit to, because you've got these great programs, and even John, they have a good relationship, with their county jails, to where they can service the folks that are incarcerated there as well. And so thinking back to like 2020, right? When Prop 17 passed, and it boom, and it expanded all of these voting rights. And it was like, okay, people in parole now got the access to vote. It's not just people in county jail, but now there's 50,000 Californians that have their right to vote back. Just that simple. So very curious to hear like how both of your counties like responded to this change. And like what systems or policies did y'all have to put in place, or did y'all put in place to ensure that people on parole are informed of their right to vote, and get that access?
Well, let me respond first if I can. So we used to have parole agents come to Napa County on Tuesday night, and there would be a bunch of parolees lined up to check in. That doesn't happen anymore. So I went over every Tuesday night as we approached election time and went through the line of parolees to make sure that this was their last day on parole or whatever. And I would actually hand them forms. Personally, we're a small county and I can do that kind of service. That is stopped. There is no more local parole agents that I know of. Philip may know better than I in a large county, but they stay in their offices. It's all done
They're
electronically.
tough.
Yeah, so I don't have that access that I did. So the other, and of course, our local probation officers in the county don't deal with people who have been convicted of felonies or on state parole. That's a whole different system.
Yeah.
So you can help us, I think, at Initiate Justice by finding the ways, like I put in the chat how to contact your local registrar. Maybe Initiate Justice could tell all of us if there's a point person in the parole division of the agency that does statewide parole that we can reach out to. I think after tonight's session, Philip and I will coordinate.
Absolutely.
If you give us a name, and we're going to reach out to them and find out how we can reach these people who are coming. They don't send us a list of we have a list of who's in prison and not eligible, but we currently don't have a list of people who have just come off parole. And I don't think that's happening from the Secretary of State. That would be a great issue if we could. So the Department of Corrections tells the Secretary of State who's there, okay? The parole division doesn't tell the Secretary of State who's off parole. Hello? Got it? So if they would tell Secretary of State who's off parole, bingo, we get that list and I can reach out to them. If they're in Napa County, can I tell a quick story? So
yeah, for sure.
I was the Registrar of Voters, as I said, 25 years. About 15 years ago, a guy came in who I knew, upstanding member of the community, worked for the county actually, had been busted way back when on a marijuana charge, and it was a felony. He didn't know 15 years later that his right to vote had been restored. And we got him registered to vote that minute. So if we could get that list, you can help us with that. That's not what we can do. But if you can help us with that, getting the department that runs parole, I don't even know what it's called, to start reporting the end of parole for those 50,000 people to the SOS will report them to us, and bingo. Yep. That's the way to do it, because we're the outreach. the Secretary of State can outreach, but it's better for us to reach our local people
Yep.
because then they have that contact. Phillips, that makes sense to you?
That totally makes sense. Like I mentioned, parole is of all the departments we're trying to work with, probation, district attorneys, all that, parole is the one that we've consistently had trouble reaching out to or connecting with. Yes. And again, like John said, if you got us that list, dude, I would instantly have a team put together just to target that list and get after it.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm writing some of this stuff down as well. Like parole reports, no list of eligibility. I think that's a huge gap right
Yep.
there. Like what you just said is like the CDCR is not providing a list to the Secretary of State's office of folks who are on parole and who are now eligible to vote. And I do also want to clarify because I don't know, I feel like it might be a mistake, John, on not necessarily intentionally, but you keep mentioning that folks off parole. And so I do want to clarify that Prop 17 did restore people's right to vote
No,
while
that
they are still
wasn't.
on actively parole. So
Thank you.
yeah,
Yes.
but I
But I
absolutely
think
do
when,
think that we can partner up and connect and figure out who the most appropriate person is to connect y'all with as it relates to state parole, whether we got to go county by county or whether we do a statewide thing. But I'm pretty sure that we would be able to kind of assist that because that's one of our goals in our mission statements is to again activate this power of people impacted by incarceration. So I definitely think that we can have offline conversations about that, continuing about how we can make sure that folks in your counties that you are receiving all that information so that you are able to then go and outreach to those folks and let them know that their rights have been restored and that they can register to vote and things of that nature. So I love that. That's such an amazing suggestion. And I also feel like running this by our policy team because it could be a potential bill idea as well. So that's just absolutely amazing.
well,
So
I think it could be done, and thank you for correcting me, but I think it could be done administratively. If the CDRC can tell people who's in jail, whoever they turn it over to, and there was a great suggestion in the chat from Delphina that parolees should be given upon their release a voter registration blank. Hello? I mean, high school
yes,
seniors are given a registration blank upon graduation. If you graduate from incarceration, you should be given a voter registration. Okay, so great idea,
absolutely.
Delphine. Just a great idea.
Absolutely. Yeah, Delphina, great idea. I'm telling you, Delphina is actually one of our recent graduates from our Institute of Impacted Leaders. It's a 12-week advocacy training program. So I know Delphina is on fire and ready to advocate for her community. So really, really appreciate that suggestion because again, it's a great idea. And again, I do save the chat at the end of this, so I'll be able to go back and pick that out and give it to like our policy team and things like that because definitely sounds like a great bill idea in my book. But yeah, this is really, really great. I really just appreciate again like your response on your end, John. Philip, on your end, in terms of how LA County responded to like all these people on parole now just have their right to vote. And again, LA County is massive. It's huge, right?
Yeah.
And so like how did LA County respond to the passing of Prop 17 in 2020?
So at that time, we were actually working with the ACLU to really expand our voting while incarcerated program. Um, Again, we were working with them trying to get that parolee information. It was still tough to them. They actually had some contact at the time, which somehow disappeared once LA Free the Vote kind of was implemented on. That's one area we're still looking to expand. So the parolee, like as soon as John mentioned, so yeah, that's the hardest one. I mean, we've even been recently working with Federal Bureau of Prisons to identify LA County residents that are outside of LA County because we're trying to get them their vote by mail access now, you know. And in those cases, like John says, nobody releases names. They absolutely will not give us any names, but they will tell us, hey, there's 54 guys from LA County here. You send me 54 packets, and we'll ensure they get to them. This is something we got turned on to by some colleagues at Washington, D.C. who are doing this. And per them, this is something we're going to be trying in 2024, 2025. But they said Bureau of Prisons has been really good about actually distributing that information and getting it to the folks that were eligible. So parolees, those still, like I said, as soon as John said, if you guys have a contact or you can get it somehow reports to SOS, dude, that's something we could act on immediately. Everything else, like I heard the mention of putting it in packets from the release. That's exactly how we're doing with probation right now. You know, when folks are leaving on probation, we're giving them a whole packet. It's part of their exit forms. Unfortunately, parolees are the tough one. So outside of that, though, we do a lot of outreach, in-person outreach. So I have a pretty robust team. And working through ODR, we have a pretty extensive. I mean, we've worked with Initiate Justice before. We'll table. We go to these events. You know, there's a variety of events that ODR puts on where we have a bunch of lawyers helping people with expungement. We have LASA there helping people get housing right when they've been released. We're there giving away free birth certificates for anyone that may be experiencing homelessness. And we're doing voter registration and spreading the word. You know, we're out there telling people just straight up, hey, if your jacket's closed, you're eligible. Let's get on this right now, you know? So that's the best way. It really has been boots on the ground effort because we don't have that top level. Like I said, working with the sheriffs, we work top down. With parole, we don't have that top down contact just yet.
Nice. I appreciate that so much. I appreciate the work that both y'all are doing in your respective counties. LA County, you know, with its massive residency, and Napa, although y'all are small, but it sounds like you were small and mighty. So just really
Yeah.
appreciate the work that is happening on both of these counties. And it's just like really refreshing to hear that
Yeah.
folks, even in small counties like Napa, are really fighting to make sure that people who are franchised and re-enfranchised and have their access to vote. So it's super important. I did have a third question that I shared with y'all, but you somewhat already answered it, so I'm going to skip it. It was really just around like how each of y'all is working to ensure that folks are participating in local elections or in the elections in county jails, and you all have already answered that and gone over that. So for the sake of time, because I also want to make sure that folks have a chance to get their questions asked, really want to ask y'all how folks here today can connect with their local registrar of voters offices if they have election concerns around fairness, access, or even in the case like you mentioned, John, and both you, Philip, of not having this list of people who are actively on parole. Like, how can community members who know they have loved ones, community members who are actively on parole, make sure that they get connected with you and vice versa? So like, what are the best ways to go about that?
Well, I put my direct email in the chat. And the key here is you need to deal with your local registrar.
Yep.
Somebody in Stockton shouldn't call Philip, and somebody in Imperial County, FA shouldn't call me. You need to talk to your local registrar. I put that list in the chat. Every one of us has a website. All of us have an alias email, elections@countyofnapa.org, elections@countyofImperial.whatever. So you can always find us on the web. Just put in local registrar email and something will pop up. So that's the key. The other thing I wanted to say, and Philip may know more about it than I do, is I haven't thought about federal parolees because they're, of course, I assume, is this only a state parolee whose rights are restored, or is a federal parolee's rights also restored? Because I don't even know how you locate federal parolees. People get out of federal prison just like they get out of state prison. So
Yeah.
just throwing that out. I don't want to take our time today, but maybe Adriana, you and your team, your policy team, could look at that and maybe put out a little bulletin to all of us, and the 58 of us, as to what do we do about federal parolees and how does Prop 17 affect them. That might be something to help me understand better.
I love that question. It's definitely something I will bubble up to our policy team for sure, and see how Prop 17 also serves those folks as well. One more question before we move forward. I'm so sorry. I wanted to ask, because I think there's also, like, because you work in elections, I also want folks to understand how you are able to get your jobs. And so, is the registrar of voters an elected position, or is this an appointed position? Do you apply? Like, how does one become an ROV?
Well, let me just start off. I
Varies.
happen to be elected. It's different in many counties. There are about 2/3 of the vote registrars are elected officials. Usually I hold some other jobs besides registrar of voters. But in LA's case and a number of the charter counties like Santa Clara County and other counties, they're appointed officials. But more importantly, what I want to stress is I need vote center workers right now for the March
Everyone.
election. Everyone does, all across the state. And if I have a brochure, which I'm going to send you, Adriana, after this meeting, if you can circulate that to people you know about, we would love to get people to learn about elections by actually working for us. And we pay $1,000 for 50 hours work over 3 weeks in February and another 3 weeks in October. So I'm going to send you that. The best way to learn about elections is to get involved. First of all, vote, number one. First of all, register, then vote. And then if you have the time and energy, especially with activists like you have supporting you and Initiate Justice, get involved with the voting process. And the more you learn, the better advocates you'll be for the people you're trying to serve.
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly with that. I was a poll worker in high school, so I definitely understand like the work that it takes. So if y'all are in their counties or any of your counties, reach his office and see how you can get involved in your local elections and being a poll worker or a volunteer or just a volunteer for the elections process. So incredibly impactful, and you really do learn a lot being in space with those folks. You really do learn a lot, so it's definitely invaluable information. I know, John, you have to go in a few minutes. And so we have a question from Kari asking if opportunities like that, like volunteering, poll working, and things like that, if those are felony friendly. So folks with felonies or anything like that, or who are actively on parole, are they able to volunteer in these sort of opportunities?
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yes,
And in
Kari,
fact,
did you?
something to note that you don't even have to be a citizen. You have to be a citizen to register to vote, but to work as a poll worker, you just have to be a resident, basically have your green card. So
I
famously,
love that.
Dolores Huerta, not a citizen, wasn't able to vote, but she was out there door knocking and working at the polls. So as long as you have the green card, friends, family, relatives, that's the way to go. I'm calling from my phone, so I'm not typing anything into the chat right now, but I'm going to share all this information, my contact information, some other key links, everything with you, and I'm going to encourage you to distribute them to all. Again, yeah, if you're outside of LA County, there's not much I can do for you, but please feel free to call me and ask us, what strategies are you guys using? How did you set this up? Connect me with someone at ODR. I want to see how they're doing X, Y, and Z. Absolutely, we could do that. We try and set ourselves up as that coordinating table and share these strategies. Like I said, when the ACLU was running up and down the state saying, hey, you got to give people their rights to vote, they came to LA County where we're already doing it. And the SOS straight up, because LA County is so big, says, hey, you guys take care of LA County, we'll do the rest of the state and we'll touch base afterwards. So I mean, if LA County was a state, I think we'd be the 8th largest state in the nation, just LA County. So the things like the federal parole and all that stuff, totally things that we've touched base on at some point. But as we're implementing this in-person voting model to 12 to 14,000 people, that's where our plate is full right now. So once we get that down, then we start looking at the next level. Speaking of poll workers, though, one thing we are looking at right now, and we got to work with the sheriffs on this one, but we're looking at having those that are currently incarcerated to work as the election workers for those vote centers that I'm bringing into the jail. So I think that would be another great piece. Another thing we've done too to help spread the word to families outside too through ODR and those things. When I have done voting opportunities in jail, we've taken a mobile voting unit on like a Sunday when we know there's a lot of visitors coming, and we're trying to hit the families up outside, and then they go inside. And we have one of our vote centers directly in front of the visiting rooms with all glass, so people are visiting and like, oh, look it, there's some of my friends, relatives, whatever, they're voting right there. So it was a great example to set for folks. Probably one of the few times you're ever going to see someone in an orange jumpsuit and someone in a sheriff's uniform voting side by side right there, which is awesome. Which is also a little bit of a speed bump, right? We can't have uniformed officers, so there's that balancing game, keeping them far enough away but close enough to maintain everyone's safety and all that. So, but
Yeah.
it's it's a balancing game.
It definitely is. But again, I'm so just thrilled to hear that all of this amazing work is happening, and that there's momentum, and that, hopefully, I'm hoping that after tonight's meeting, definitely send me any information that y'all want to
Absolutely.
send me, and we'll make sure that we distribute that out in our recap email that goes out in terms about this meeting. But I want to create space for our members and community members that are in space with us this evening. Folks have been really engaged in the chat. Crispy, I see your hand. But I want to create space for them to be able to ask some questions of y'all. John, I know you do have to leave pretty soon. So again, just thank you for joining us. Really, really appreciate it. And just, yeah, if you want to just hang out until you have to bounce out, that's totally fine.
I'm
But
fascinated. I've got to hear Crispy's question.
yes, everybody loves Crispy's questions. So definitely, if y'all have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or raise your hand, and we'll call on you, and we'll spend some time answering questions. So Crispy, go ahead. What's your question?
Yeah, thank you, everybody. This is a great presentation. So I just remember in like Public Safety Committee and all the committees, you know, the opposition kept had a big concern over whether or not people who are incarcerated were going to be coerced by the COs in their voting. And this is, you know, we're also pushing ACA for voting in prisons. Right. And so I was wondering if there was, I mean, if there's any reality to what they're talking about, if you had any experience with that and what was done to prevent that.
Sure. John, you want to jump in?
No, go ahead, Philip. You're in the jail.
Early on before we
ballots in.
Okay. Early on before we had a pretty robust volunteer program, I wouldn't say there was coercion, but there was maybe just checking off the box type of effort, right? Some of the deputies we work with, okay, you got to do registration. We train them, and the registration is kind of like walking through a door. Anyone want to register? Okay, and that's it, right? Not a lot of effort put into it. Not explaining what you get out of voting, what registration gets you. You know, no kind of educational effort around it, anything like that. Once we got more involved, once we got more sheriff's deputies dedicated to the program rather than just having rotating ones, whoever got voluntold they were doing this. Once the sheriff's dedicated a group of deputies that would oversee, and they had a connection, a network of other deputies across all 8 facilities, then we started moving forward. But we were lucky to have deputies that believed in the program, believed in the voting process. So, which again, you know, we have 14,000 inmates. You can imagine how many deputies you have. And, you know, a lot of, you know, their beliefs are across the whole spectrum, right? So what we have now is it's come so far from just a sheriff wandering through the dorms going, okay, here's registration, anyone interested? To where now they're putting in, we have flyers we distribute to them. They're putting, leading up to the dates of their vote centers, leading up to election day, they're putting those flyers in the lunch bags every single day. They're running video announcements in the morning. They're putting posters up on the walls. So they're definitely making that access and that awareness. The awareness is the big piece. So not so much coercion, just maybe early on, a lack of true effort, so to speak. And then, like I mentioned on the back end too, like with vote by mail, the applications are transferred back and forth from the registrars via sheriff's deputy. The ballots are returned via sheriff's deputy. Once the voted ballots are done, the sheriff's bringing back to us. So that, you know, there is some hesitancy from the folks that are incarcerated in trusting the deputies, right? And rightly so, right? They're dealing with them every day. They have their reasons, whatever the case may be. So that's a hurdle we had to get over also. But on that same token, you know, the sheriffs have done really great. I mean, last election, on election day, there was a gentleman who had been processed in only a couple days after we had been there offering voting. He had missed registration deadline. We got it taken care of. That sheriff was able to get all his information, get it back to us. We processed it as a conditional voter registration type thing, and he was able to get him that one single ballot. Sheriff deputy drove all the way to office, got it back to him. So that tells me that the sheriffs are making that effort. And again, you know, even the little bit of effort helps from their end, right? Just giving us that access. So not so much coercion, but just that effort.
Before I leave, let me, Crispy raised a good point, and I want to say this, that with vote by mail, coercion can happen at the breakfast table in every home.
Yep.
So it's not limited to a power over someone because they're incarcerated. It can happen anywhere. And as Philip said, we have one jail, we have one lieutenant. He happens to be a he in this case, is committed to this program. I'm sure,
That's awesome.
and since the inmates are voting by mail, they are not being seen how they're voting. It's totally private to them. They're not being
Yeah.
watched while they vote. Voting, they don't have to show what they're doing because there's no danger. As Philip said, they take the staples out, so they've got that privacy. So I would certainly push back at that kind of concern, trying to stop this process that you're working so hard on. With that, I'm going to have to leave. I very much enjoyed this. I put in the chat I'm available anytime by email for further conversation or information. And I've really enjoyed this evening. Thank you for putting them together, and I look for the next one.
Thank you so much, John. Take care and have a good rest of your
Bye-bye.
evening. Thanks for joining us. And then there were two.
Hey, if you got questions, I got time.
Thank you so much, Philip. We're going to take maybe 5 or 10 more minutes of questions, and then we'll move into our close. As a reminder for folks that might be new into our space, I know your Zoom link might say until 8:30, but we scheduled these reoccurring meetings way at the beginning of the year when we were still meeting to 8:30, but we end our monthly member meetings now at 8 o'clock. So we'll take a few more minutes of questions, and then we'll move into our close. So Sherry, I see you have a question, so feel free, come off mute, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for being here. This has been very, very informative. I have a question as to when we get the voting rights back in the prisons. Will that be handled through your registrar voter, or is there a state registrar voter that would handle the prison system since it's different from the counties?
That's a great question. Ultimately, I believe it would fall on the Secretary of State. He's like the registrar of voters for the whole state, basically. But when that happens, then they'll typically provide guidance to the other counties and say, hey, look, here's how we're going to run it. Here's our responsibility. They'll provide us with materials. They'll work on all that. They'll train us or make us aware of those types of things. And like I said, especially with LA County, the Secretary of State's like, you guys do LA County, we'll cover the rest of the state. So they'll come to us, give us all our training, and then we would implement that way. So odds are it would be on us against, especially since we're already making inroads, working with Federal Bureau of Prisons, trying to identify folks in other areas in preparation for this type of thing, for passage of like ACA 4 and such. So I think ultimately it would be SOS, and I'll confirm this. I'll go back and say, yeah, that's a great question. We haven't thought about that, but ultimately it would be SOS, and then they would pass the responsibility down to us on the local level.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Philip. That was super helpful. I know that is something that we always wonder. And I know we have already effectively ended, as best we can, prison gerrymandering. Right. And so now folks are being counted in the counties that they came from. So I think that is just one more thing that's going to help the ACA 4 effort when it does finally pass, of being able to say, okay, now we know that they're counted over here. So yes, Secretary of State, do your thing, and then pass the buck or whatever needs to happen to the local level, just to make sure that they're not losing that connection to their local office.
And because ultimately the Secretary doesn't actually run elections, they just call the election and provide the rules and all that stuff. So it's each independent county registrar that would be responsible for helping them get out the word.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then you would also have to send them their vote by mail, their ballots, essentially, because they would need to have their county information on it. So yeah. Awesome question, Sherry. And Crispy, thank you for both of y'all questions. Really good stuff. Are there any other questions for our remaining guests this evening? I know we have a huge population member base in the LA area. So I know a few folks are on here this evening. So definitely want to make sure that folks get their questions asked, even if you aren't from LA County. Right? Maybe you have ideas on how you want to improve your county's Registrar of Voters office, right? And you want to share some ideas. So question.
I've recently been working with groups from Oakland. They've been asking, how do we make inroads into our jail system? Nice. Lots of times other counties have come to us. So yeah, throw those questions at me.
Yeah. I guess I will go with a question as other folks maybe think on some questions, but in the spirit of going into county jails, particularly maybe if a county, I know San Joaquin County, that's where I live, and I remember being incarcerated. This was a decade ago. I was incarcerated back in 2010 in our county jail, and I actually remember getting something sent to me, asking me to go to court for jury duty or something. And I was like, oh, I'm in jail, I can't do it. But wondering in terms of those smaller counties that maybe don't have a system in place yet for making sure that the folks inside county jails are getting their vote by mail ballot and things like that. What do you suggest to community members, like the best ways of conducting that sort of outreach to their local registrar and sort of starting that conversation? Like what would be the best approach strategy
The
wise?
best way is get involved with the group like Initiate Justice and come in force to them. That's the
Nice.
best way. You know, a bunch of individual calls, that's one thing, yeah. But if you have groups and then Initiate Justice, hey, we're going to collaborate with ACLU. You know, ACLU is great at instigating action within government. You know, they're not, you know, people give them a bad rap. They're not about, hey, we're going to go out and sue every single government type of thing. But they do waive that sort of litigation around, you know, and the governments do fear that a bit. So if there's laws on the book, like when Prop 17 passed and ACLU is going up and down the state telling people, hey, you got to implement this. John had mentioned that the rules, the election code, it's consistent across the state. However, just like my sheriff's deputies, how much effort each individual county registrar puts towards that is different. I've been spoiled in LA County. Folks tell me all the time from other counties, whether it's in California or other states, like, you guys are actually unique in how open you are with the public, right? Like I said, I work with student groups that the registrar doesn't turn their back on them, but isn't as forthcoming with the information, isn't trying to make it easy, you know, like we pre-COVID, we were already doing voter registration training online. It's like, hey, people, get online, let's do this. We developed a train the trainers. That way, hey, you know, let's say Crispy's the only one from Initiate Justice that can make it. That's okay, Crispy. We're going to train you in a half hour and we're going to provide you all the materials so you can sit down with everybody else and start getting involved like that. Sign up. If you're eligible, sign up, get your family to sign up as election workers. LA County, we have a lot of LA County folks out here right now. Outside of election workers, to run an election, a statewide, a federal election in LA County, it takes an army. We have thousands of vote centers, you know, so we're hiring people right now. They're hiring people as election assistant ones. Go to lavote.gov, go to LA County DHR, sign up for those election assistant one positions. Those are paying, I think, $17, $18 an hour. If you've done some voter registration, work with a group like Initiate Justice, you could say, hey, I have election experience and sign up for an election assistant too. Now you're bumping into the $20 an hour, you know, and it's just routine work. It's making the election happen. But working in LA County, you're definitely going to learn a lot about elections. You know, we're the largest, most diverse in the nation. We offer materials in 19 different languages, right? Most counties I work with across the state, I was at a convention last week of large election jurisdictions, and 90% only offer English. Some of them are starting to delve into Spanish across the country. You know, LA County, we've got it all out here. County
Thank you.
worker volunteers get paid. Okay.
No, thank you so much for that and that insight of just like the encouragement to just like reach out, connect, start the conversation, right? You've given me so many ideas for what like Initiate Justice can do potentially as an organization. But I want to encourage all of you here this evening as individuals to really feel empowered because, you know, IJ is going to move the way IJ is going to move, and we're going to move at a particular timeline, or we're going to do things, we're going to strategize, we're going to do all these things, right? You as individuals have the power, the authority, the autonomy to go ahead and say, you know what, I'm going to reach out to my ROV tomorrow.
Yep.
And just start asking questions and start having those conversations. So really encourage
I'll go
y'all.
one step further for you.
Yeah.
Since some ROVs are sometimes hard to reach and stuff, if you have problems reaching the right person in your ROV, reach out to me. A lot of times they'll respond to, hey, oh, this is another registrar. Let me respond to them. Oh, Phil Verbera, we've worked with him in the past. He has that giant program, whatever. Let me find a contact. Then I'll circle back to you.
Amazing.
And now you're good to go. You say, okay, hey, I was told that you oversee outreach and you do this, that, and the other. And that gives you an inroad.
Y'all here, y'all got an in. Y'all better take it. Y'all
also,
better take this free
in places
game.
like, what was it? John was from Napa, right?
Yeah.
John's an elected official. The most powerful words you could say to elected officials, whether it's the registrar, city council, or everything, you go up to them, you give them your speech, you give them your asks, whatever, and you end that reminding them, and we vote. right?
Yes.
You remind them that this is a voter.
Constituency
This is not just
power.
one person coming up to you. This is a group of folks from Initiate Justice. We're this many strong and we vote. That
Yes.
makes a difference.
Constituency power. It's something that we talk
Yep.
about in our Institute of Impacted Leaders program. Like your power as a voting constituent is
Yep.
paramount, right? So absolutely amazing. Thank you so
Can I
much.
share a story?
Yeah,
Can I share a
I
quick
want to go
story?
back to, I think somebody
Okay.
else had one more question.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was Effie. Did you have a question? I want to make sure I didn't
It
miss it. I
wasn't
saw
really a
your hand.
question. It wasn't really a question because Philip had mentioned ACLU. They do a lot of good things. I just wanted to applaud that and piggyback on it because yes, it's true. They do a lot of good work because I also
Mhm.
volunteer with ACLU here in Emporia County. And
Right on.
during the pandemic, as a matter of fact, when they were advocating for releasing inmates to go home and what do you call it? Quarantine at home rather than
Oh,
the county jails. So I was one of those on behalf of ACLU that actually testified before the city council in one of their meetings. We did it via Zoom, where it was really interesting. And of course, they voted in favor of it and released those who were considered low risk image to go back home. So that was one of my first time actually speaking in public on
right on.
behalf of incarcerated or formerly incarcerated inmates. So yes, they do
Mhm.
good things, not just the negative publicity that they get most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Yes.
they really fight
I
for
love
us.
the ACLU.
I do too.
I love the ACLU. So thank you for sharing that, Effie, and uplifting that and sharing your support. So really, really appreciate it. But we are coming to the end of our meeting tonight. So definitely, Philip, I want to give you that space to kind of close us out with this portion and share
Oh,
that story that you want to share. And then after that, I'll go
sure.
ahead and bring us into our real close and give folks their evening back.
Just want to share a quick story about the power of your vote, incarcerated or otherwise. This is a story that's been shared with me. I work with a lot of council, a lot of mayor, all that stuff. Here's an example of the power of your vote. Let's say every day when I'm backing on my driveway, I'm hitting a pothole, right? And so I'm calling the city and let's fix this pothole, and I'm not getting any response. So next step, right? You call your council members and say, hey, I'm calling the city, I'm not getting any response. That council member is an elected official. And over, I've heard the same story that one of the first things they do when they get a complaint like that and the city's not acting, they'll look at voter history. They'll check that neighborhood. Say, oh, wow, this neighborhood has high voter turnout. They'll get on the phone with the city and they'll light a fire under someone. Now, if it's low voter turnout, it's not as pertinent to them. They all tell me over and over, yeah, they'll call the city and say, hey, are you aware of Phil Rivera's complaint? Oh yeah, okay, it's in the list, it's in the queue, you'll get to it. All right, I'll let them know. Hey Phil, they're gonna get to it. But they see everybody in my neighborhood's voting, they'll call the city and say, hey, what's up? We got a neighborhood here, we got this pothole, because they know that whole neighborhood deals with that pothole. And if he doesn't help us, she doesn't help us, they're not getting voted back in. So that's just a little example of the power of your vote. And people say, what does one vote count? Well, there you are, just one little neighborhood. That counts a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And we
So,
definitely know, particularly here at Initiate Justice, how powerful one vote can be. Oftentimes, an election is decided by
yeah.
one vote. And so I remember feeling that anxiety during the 2017 Trump election. And I couldn't vote at the time, but I was like, oh, I just know I'm that one vote. So it's definitely powerful, particularly at the local level. The
Yeah.
federal
Yeah.
presidential election is a whole nother ball of wax, but when it comes
Yeah.
to those local elections and our state legislature elections, super important to be registered and to vote for who you feel like is going to best represent your community in the most intentional way.
Yeah, your vote is definitely most powerful at the local level. And keep in mind, once these politicians go beyond the local level and start getting party support and the money gets bigger and all that, it's harder to rein folks in. But you can weed them out at the local level, right? If there's a bad politician, let's make sure we're not revoting that person in. Let's not let them catch some momentum and all of a sudden they're moving on to higher, bigger, and better things, Absolutely not,
Absolutely.
And the key is to stay involved after the election, right? If you're a
Yes.
business owner, and you start getting busy. I need to hire some additional staff, and you hire some high school kid, and you're my cashier now, blah blah blah. You're not going to hire that kid, put him in front of your money, and then say, peace out, I'll catch you in 2 weeks on payday. Right? But that's what we do with these politicians. We vote them in, everybody turns out election day, and then peace out, we don't see you until next election. And then behind the scenes, they're doing X, Y, and Z. People aren't paying attention. You got to keep an eye on your money. We are hiring them. They're working off our tax money. That's their paycheck. We are their employer. Again, I wouldn't put a kid in front of my cash register and say, I'll catch you in a couple of weeks. Why are we putting these people in the power of our lives and not keeping tabs on them? Definitely have to do that. Attend those council meetings, make yourself known. Introduce yourself to your council members. Hey, what's up? I'm Phil Rivera. I vote. I live in this community. What are you doing for me? Hey, what are your thoughts on voting while incarcerated? Where do you stand on this? Put them on the spot. Use your what is it? Robert's Rules of Orders. You get a minute and a half guaranteed to speak on anything you want. Get up there and just speak. They're not going to respond. They can't respond, but make your voice heard out there. Don't just do it on election day. I'm sorry, I got a little excited.
No, I love it. I love the
No.
energy. Like with this energy, it's like I wish we went until 8:30. But I love the energy that you brought. It's definitely what we encourage here at Initiate Justice.
Please. Yeah.
Those who have gone through our Institute of Impacted Leaders program know how much we emphasize building relationships with our local elected leaders, and engaging with them and attending meetings and lobby visits and all of these things. And so the same applies with any elected leader, anybody who is in charge of running your government. So again, thank you so much, Philip, for joining.
Thank you guys for the opportunity. Thank you.
An absolute joy. It's been an absolute pleasure. I just want to remind folks, please send your thank yous in the chat, send love with emojis and things like that. Let Philip know that we definitely appreciate him for pulling over the side of the LA freeway to be with us. So we just want to thank y'all. I have one quick reminder for y'all. Just remember that our next member meeting is next month, Wednesday, November 1st, same time, same place, 6:30 p.m. Our policy team, I'm going to drop it in the chat right now, but our policy team will be giving every update on policy that they could possibly give next month. So don't miss out. They're going to give a final update on all of our bills for the year, including which bills were signed for the governor. And there may even be more discussions around AB 1310. So definitely please plug in. You can RSVP for that meeting at tinyurl.com/IJ meeting. The link is in the chat. Again, thank you so much, Philip, for joining. I'm going to turn off these spotlights. Let me remove my spotlight.
Take care, all. Thank you.
But thank y'all for joining. That is a wrap. I'm going to stop our recording. But thank y'all so much for hanging out with us. And I hope that y'all got something out of that. Please be encouraged to reach out to your local ROV. Election season is right around the corner. So make sure you register to vote, get your friends, your family members, get them registered. And as always, if y'all need anything or have any questions or concerns or want to be connected with anybody that was here tonight, please reach out to me at Initiate Justice, Adriana at initiatejustice.org. There's my email in the chat. But it's been a pleasure hanging out with y'all tonight. Thank you so much. And with that, y'all are excused. Thank you so much. Bye, y'all.